100 episodes. The Press Box podcast is 4 years old, or will be 4 years old next month. And we've certainly enjoyed bringing it to you. We've had plenty of episodes, and we thought before we get into our week 6 recap of the NFL, we thought we'd all talk just a little bit about some of our favorite episodes. And I'm going to start, I guess, with our very first episode. I think our very first episode, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, with Jonathan Crompton. Was that right? And, that Jonathan Crompton, former quarterback for the University of Tennessee, former NFL quarterback. And we talked to Jonathan Crompton about his career. And that's kind of what got us going on the podcast. And then our second episode was with Jim Gaylor, former defensive coordinator for the Maryville High School Rebels. And I remember we did that episode at the studios of Knoxville Sports Radio, a fan-run radio. So in our early years, we were kind of feeling our way, but those 2 episodes were great. So those were my 2 favorites, only because they were our starters, and that's what got us going.
Joseph?
Yeah, those are 2 good ones right there. For me, the ones that jump out at me when I think back to our episodes, there's a few of them. There's the Hall of Fame In or Out series that we did.
Yes.
Which is always fun and very heated because we had some strong opinions on guys, specifically in baseball, where, we got to, you can go back and listen to those if you want to hear them. They're some of our better episodes as far as just like content and liveliness. So I always enjoyed those. Also we did NFL, MLB, Ultimate, we did World Series and Super Bowl champion to the last 50 years, right? From 1970. Had our bracket and broke those games down, which is always fun as well. And as far as guests, I always enjoyed having Josh Caraway on, partly because we kind of grew up together and went to high school together, but we'll probably have him on again in the future as well. And with Coastal Carolina still hanging in there and having some success, but those are just 3 of the ones that stand out to me. Although we've had a lot of other good guests, and a lot of other fun episodes as well.
Yeah, I agree. I like the brackets we did. Those are pretty fun. I think we did those during the pandemic. I think when there wasn't a lot of sports going on. Those were really fun and got a little heated. It was fun just to make the bracket too, and
he did it in a fun way though.
Yeah, fun to make the bracket and just decide what teams are going to be in it and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've been all of the guests I've enjoyed just because it's always I'm usually not a part of those interviews, but I like listening to them, and you learn something new from everybody. And we've had, of course, professional football players, professional baseball players. We've had, coaches. We've had Olympic athletes from various sports. Right. So, lots of different types of sports. I've learned a lot listening to them. I've enjoyed listening to those. And then, we've had some recurring interviews that are always good to have them back on. Stanton Cameron's been on a couple of times. Right. Steve Dunn's been on a couple of times. Josh Caraway, as Joseph said. So it's interesting to have those people on the second time and get into a little more detail about some certain aspects of their life, their careers and sports. Then I think maybe my favorites. My favorite non-interview ones maybe are the ones that Josh already mentioned too. It's Hall of Fame In and Out episodes. Mm-hmm. Those are just fun to talk about, and hopefully maybe we can do some more of those in the future.
Yeah, and the Hall of Fame ones stand out for me too. And of course, Uncle Joe, who was a previous guest on our podcast, him and I both big Joe DiMaggio fans, and I know we got into some serious discussions about Joe DiMaggio. I think it's blasphemy to say he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, but we did go through the numbers and we did get kind of heated on those. Josh Caraway, a great guest. Obviously, Joseph, you went to high school with him and played football with him, and he's always been a good guest for us. He probably, I'll have to ask him if he's a little bit upset with me and Nathan doing the college football one, because we've come down pretty hard on Charleston,
Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, I'm not coming down. Yeah, not hard on the fact that they're not good or anything. They're very good. Hard on the fact that they're placed among the best college football teams, which should be no place.
Right. So that's always interesting as well. I've enjoyed interesting how different guests bring about different feelings of their character. Like Steve Dunn, I've always loved to talk to Steve. Very methodical, very analytical. He can talk baseball with the best of them. We got some great insight into his coaching abilities, great insight to his time in the major leagues. And then Stanton Cameron, Stanton's totally different. I mean, Stanton probably knows more about hitting than some players who are playing today in the major leagues. But Stanton's kind of a dry, humorous guy, and kind of the favorite line was, I think we brought out that he looks a little bit like Hasselhoff, David Hasselhoff. Yeah. And his great line was, "I'm not the Hoff, man."
Yeah, he gets. I think he said he gets mistaken sometimes for David Hasselhoff.
Yeah,
because he's also very big. Stanton.
Yes,
Hasselhoff is too. They're both tall,
but he's not the Hoff.
Yeah.
So no, those were good episodes as well. And of course, we've had Coach Quarles on, the great Maryville High School coach, who's now at Furman University. So yeah, and the Olympians. I think I give Nathan Miranda 100% credit for that. He's the one who thought up the idea of trying to get some Olympians on, and he did a great job of tweeting at some of these Olympians. Because really that was the only way we knew how to get in touch with them. And sure enough, 3 or 4 of them responded, and we were able to set up some really good interviews with Barry Murphy, who was an Irish swimmer, with
Anthony Familieri,
who was a cross-country runner. And Familietti, that's right. I said it right when we interviewed him. I said it wrong now. Cross-country runner. And then Stamatina Scarvelis, right, who was a UT hammer thrower, excuse me. Yeah. So yeah, those were awesome interviews, and those were Nathan's idea to do that, since we had the Olympics this year, 1 year delayed because of the pandemic.
Yeah, and I would love to have all 3 of them back on sometime. I think they really have a lot of interesting insight into their sports, and even if it's not, of course, we have the Olympics now in 3 years instead of 4. That'd be a good opportunity. But even just anytime, it'd be interesting to talk to them again. So
that's right. Joseph, any more thoughts on some favorite episodes or some key things that stand out in your mind?
John Bryce, another multiple time guest.
That's correct. He is right. Another one I found interesting was someone Nathan Miranda, when we had him on.
That's right.
Who played professional football over in Europe. What was it, Croatia or Germany?
He played in Sweden, and then he also played, I think, in Poland. I believe. Yeah. I think he's played again.
I think he's playing again. Yeah. He's the
unique in terms of.
Go ahead.
In terms of, most people think professional football, they obviously think the NFL or Canadian League, but just kind of the overseas leagues. Because as we know, there's no longer NFL Europe, but just there are professional football opportunities overseas, and just kind of get his perspective on that was unique. And I think that, especially since we know him so well, it was enjoyable.
Yeah, no, I agree. That'd be good to talk to him again as well.
Yes, it would.
I'd like to get more in depth too, because we were trying to cover his life, and his high school. Now we can maybe go in more in depth into specifically European playing football in Europe. But I also like the golf tips from David Reed. I forgot about that too. Interesting golf in his take on kind of the state of golf with Bryson DeChambeau and all these guys who are trying to hit it real far now and kind of attack the course that way. He had some interesting takes on that.
Yeah. And Philip Uline, I'm going to say right now, he's the George Blanda of European football. George Blanda played till he was 50 in the NFL. He was a kicker. He was a backup quarterback. And Philip Uline has been playing now for, I think he's like 30 years old, which is really pretty young, but more power to him. I hope he plays as long as he wants to. So yeah, I'd love to have him back on as well. So yeah, so we've had some great episodes. I mean, we've run the gamut, right? Local people, national people, Olympians, friends, coaches. It's just been a real pleasure for us to bring you all these episodes. And we've noticed that we've got an uptick in our subscriptions. We've got more people listening to our episodes. And before I forget, you guys, one of the episodes we did, I think you and Joseph did it on the Shohei Ohtani episode. The one talking about the two-way player. That one got, I think, the most views or most listens of any of them, didn't it?
On YouTube.
Yeah, on YouTube. So that tells you that there's a lot of interest out there for what he's been able to do this year.
Yeah, he's an interesting player.
Something that nobody's been able to do that in the history of baseball, really. So
that's right. Yeah, I mean that's pretty phenomenal.
No, it is. He's an interesting player to talk about, and I'm really interested to see, like, which we talked about in that episode, some if more teams try to groom guys like that or what, because I know Joe's not got into that. It's a little his is a unique situation because he's from Japan and everything.
Right.
Well, we may touch a little bit more on that when they hand out the baseball awards in November, because he'll be up for AL MVP, I'm sure.
Right.
So we may be able to talk about that a little bit more then.
I want to see him win the MVP and the Cy Young or something.
Yeah, I don't think
Win
he's going to
both?
win. I don't think he's going to win
sometime
both.
in his
Yeah,
career.
yeah. Well, he probably will sometime. But,
Or I guess a pitcher can win MVP though.
Yeah, sure he
So
can, yeah.
I want to see him win something that only a batter and only a pitcher can win, like the Cy Young and the Silver Slugger or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, so like I said, we've enjoyed bringing it to you. It's been 100. This is number 100. So 100 episodes of the Press Box Podcast. We're excited. We'd like to bring you in, another 100. Tell all your friends. Start listening. Nathan's done a great job of expanding our presence. We have a YouTube channel. We have an Instagram page. Of course, we've always had our Twitter account. We've had some interaction. We've given out fantasy advice. We've talked a little bit. We've had some people interact with our polls. So, yeah, we've enjoyed bringing it to you. We hope that you tell everybody you know to get back on with us. So that's our little recap of our 4 years of the Press Box Podcast. Hopefully, we can expand some more and bring you another 4 great years of the Press Box Podcast. Okay, guys.